Good morning. It's Jennifer with A Glass of Art and More. And before we get started on our coffee painting, I'm going to do a quick tutorial on the rock painting with the beach and the footsteps. So if you don't want to watch this part, then just take a break, have some coffee, or come back to it in a little bit, or watch it after it's posted and you can fast forward this section. Alright, so hopefully soon we'll all be able to go back to grabbing our non-essential items really easily, and you'll be able to pick up some more paints. So you can still do this with just the primary colors, black and white, if you'd like, but to make it a little quicker, grab some other colors. I've got my rock. It's been washed and dried. I can decide which side I want to paint on. This one's got a little dent in it, and then this one's a little smoother, so I think I'll paint on this side here. I have Caribbean, or Caribbean as some of you say, cobalt hue, brown oxide, and white. These are all acrylic paints. Acrylic is a little bit more durable, lasts a little bit longer than tempera. Tempera is typically more of a washable paint these days. So I'll go ahead and get started here. I've got my colors out on my makeshift palette here, which is a plate. And I'm just going to start by grabbing that cobalt blue and brushing on my rock. Sorry, it wasn't cobalt, it was the Caribbean blue. I want to paint down a little bit underneath, so make sure you have something covering your work area. Now this part you can be a little bit crazy with. If you want a little bit of a wave or something going on there while it's coming in to the shore. You can kind of use your paintbrush and pounce a little bit to get in some of those little holes that are in the rocks. You can paint the entire rock if you want. I'm just going to get rid of some of that extra paint that I have on here. I'm just going to brush it onto the back there. Alright, while that's still wet, I'm going to dip into the blue. And just on the corner there, just kind of make a couple different colors going on through there. Just because I like to see a pretty, think of like an oceany, I don't know, something from Hawaii maybe. Alright, now I'm going to dip into my white and I'm going to pounce. Just along the shoreline. Grab some more and pounce. Grab some more and pounce. Alright, simple as that. I'm going to rinse out this paintbrush. I'm going to grab a smaller detail brush. Teeny one here. Now when I'm painting my footprints, I'm using the brown so it looks like it's wet sand. If you want to make it a little lighter, you can. I'm going to show you here on the piece of paper. We're going to make kind of an ovally shape. We want to keep them small because it's a smaller rock. And then we're going to have another ovally shape that kind of down like so. Alright, so now we have this kind of a shape, and then we can just kind of make that little bit of a curve right there. You can use the back of your paintbrush then, or you can stick with the front. Dot, 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 dot. Okay? Or, like I said, you can stick with this paintbrush here. You'll be drawing a little circle. And then dot, 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 dot. So we have the ball of our foot. And then we have the side of our foot. Easy as that, easy peasy. Let me get this guy finished off here and we'll move on to our coffee painting. And there you have it. There you've got your beach rock painted. Once this dries, I spray it with a clear lacquer or a clear can of spray coat. And then you're done. So I could add another one here and continue, like I said, all the way around the rock if I wanted to. Quick, easy, fun little rock tutorial for those of you who said you wanted to see how that was done. All right, now on to my coffee painting. I'm drinking my Folgers today just because I put a cappuccino mix in it today, and I didn't want to waste my good coffee. All right, I'm going to go change out my water real quick. No, I don't need to. I'm good. All right, so if you have the instant coffee and you have not mixed any up before, now I just bought this little container from the dollar store. There's 10 of them for $1 and it came with the lid. I put 1 heaping spoonful, a tablespoon from my silverware in, and then I added a little bit of water and I stirred it up. And then I've covered it and it's saved. It basically makes this thick, syrupy consistency. All right, and the longer it sits, the thicker it's gonna get because the water will evaporate some. That's how we start. If you don't have instant coffee and you want to paint with your regular coffee that you brewed, you can. It's just gonna take a lot more patience and a lot more strokes to get to the darker colors, because it's not a very strong consistency. There's a lot of water mixed in. If you have an espresso powder somewhere that you can mix up, that would work. But I just got some cheap instant coffee for those days that, you know, someone's like, hey, I want some coffee, and I don't suggest drinking it. I mean, you can if you put enough cream and sugar in it. All right, on to our watercolor painting with coffee. So, mine might have a hint of blue in it because of my other one. I have watercolor paper here. It's 140-pound paper. It's got a little bit of a tooth to it, which means there's texture on the paper, okay? This is perfect for watercolor. It can take on a lot of water before it gets really warped and falling apart. It will warp right away, but it won't start to like disintegrate. That's why I have it taped down. I just taped it down to the actual pad that I got my watercolor paper from, and I cut it in half. So this is actually, instead of 9 by 12, which this is, it's 9 by 6. Then I tape it down so that it stays flat and doesn't go anywhere. Now my first thing that I want to do, in my original picture here, we have a little bit of a sun. We'll put him right up here. Okay, and then just the horizon line is down here. All right, some of these areas through here are lighter because of the reflection of that sun that's on there, but we're not going to worry about putting in any of those details. We're just going to go straight to painting with coffee. I'm going to take my larger brushes. You can either use a flat one or you can use like something like this. If you don't have the coffee and you're doing it with watercolor, you probably got one like this in your watercolor containers. Okay, this will be fine for almost everything except for the little birdies. Then you might have to get a smaller brush. Some people say they you should use only watercolor brushes, or you know, there's certain brushes for oils and watercolors and acrylics, and sure, there's a lot of them out there. I buy just a basic pack that's mixed media. Sometimes they're different colors and they say, oh, this color is for watercolor. This, I haven't really found too much of a difference between any of them. So just grab whatever feels comfortable to you. So I'm going to start by putting some water down here on the bottom half of my paper. I'm not worried if it's not completely filled in. If I have some areas that are left, I'm going to come in and grab my paint, which in this case is my coffee. And just paint back and forth. Go back in, grab a little bit more water. And voila, that's finished. Easy peasy. I'm going to come in here and I'm going to start at the top. I'm going to avoid my little circle. So wherever I have my sun here, I'm going to kind of leave that circled. Now, if you're not very good at remembering where it is, and you have a white crayon handy, maybe you've got some little kids in your house, go grab the white crayon, press down hard, and color this all in, all that whole circle in with a white crayon. Then your watercolor won't stick to it because it's waxy. All right. So when you're painting your water over it, it'll just go right over. If you don't have crayons and you have a white candle, a candle will do the same thing. Some people might have a candlestick, or maybe even a birthday candle hidden in a drawer. You know, your junk drawer. Everyone's got a junk drawer, right? You might have a birthday candle hidden in there somewhere. Dipping into my coffee now. My canvas is wet up here. I'm going to start at the top because that's where it's going to be the darkest, and bring it down, avoiding my sun. Going back into my water here and blending it down. Now, if you decided that you got a little bit too much on there and you don't like how dark it is, take a piece of paper towel and you can pat around it, and you'll notice some of that coffee comes up. It happens the same with the watercolor. If you don't like the way that looks, because it might leave a texture, you can actually add a little bit more water and blot it up again. And you can get almost all that coffee right back up off that paper. All right, now I grabbed a little bit more water again. You notice here it kind of went woo and it bled up. That's because that part of the canvas, excuse me, was still wet. Right down to the line, my horizon line. This is going to be a little bit darker. We're going to have some swoops in there. We'll call them swoopy whoopies for some kind of a background. But let's keep finishing up that background color. More water, you can drag that color right across, or you can dip back into your coffee again, whichever way you like. Alright, if you have a hair dryer, you can always use a hair dryer, and you can kind of dry in between your coats. You have your first coat down, it's got coffee on the whole thing, the top is a little bit darker than the bottom. If it's not at this point, don't worry. If you want, you can come back in with your paper towel and you can kind of just squeeze some areas out, make it a little bit lighter. Those could be clouds that are going back through there if you'd like. Then what we're going to do is we're going to start adding more color with just the coffee. So you'll want one of your smaller detail brushes. If you don't have it, I'm going to continue to use the larger brush that comes with the watercolor kits. But if you do have it, go ahead and switch. Alright, I'm dipping into just coffee. Now this is still going to be pretty wet, so it might bleed a little. Alright, so I'm going to go along my horizon line, and I'm going to, just kind of wiggle it a little bit. Just like I have some hills back there with some tall trees on it. I hope you all survived the frost last night. I didn't wake up to any frost this morning, but I also didn't wake up very early this morning. kind of slept in a little bit. All right, as you're noticing, when I go back over watercolor, and I don't put more on my brush, I can leave these lines that go through. Because I'm basically, at this point, I'm just moving whatever color is on my paper around. So if you don't like that look, you have to wait for your color to dry before adding more. Some of it will blend together and you won't notice it. Okay, I'm going to come down here and find a couple little areas where I'm going to have some grass. It's kind of like a bog maybe that's starting to grow up through my water. Okay. So I just have a couple lines there. On this I have 4. You could have 2, you could have 6, you could have however many you want. Coffee break. Okay. Now you notice my paintbrush is to a nice sharp point. Remember to get it to there again. When you're rinsing and you're drying off with your paper towel, pull it to that point, or take it onto your piece of paper or something and twist your paintbrush so you can bring it back to that point. Okay, now I'm going to take my paintbrush and I'm going to start pulling some strokes going up. I like that. Watercolor can be very detailed or can be very basic. Anytime we're going to be doing it on here, it'll be pretty basic. If you want to learn more techniques, you can take one of my workshops. If we ever do get to, you know, meet again, we can show you a few more techniques. You can always do private lessons. I'm dipping just the very tip of my paintbrush back into the coffee every so often. Now when I'm making strokes, they don't always necessarily have to go straight up and down. You can have them kind of curve one way or the next a little bit. Try to make them look a little bit more realistic. Grass doesn't always just grow straight up, right? You can vary some. If some gets really dark like that, that's okay. Don't panic. 1, it'll soak into the canvas quite a bit still. And 2, it adds more interest to your painting to have the different values going. Okay. Now if you want to do a little bit of that up towards your trees, you can make them look more like they're trees growing in the distance. You can add some of those strokes going up like they're really tall trees back there. You don't have to. If you like it, just smooth hills, you can have just smooth hills. But every once in a while, you know, I might have a rogue tree there that grows a little bit taller. Now if we want to make it look like we have some more clouds up here in the sky, we want to change the layer, we want to layer the different values of our coffee here. So you want to have some really light areas, you want some medium areas, and then you want some of the darker areas. So we've got a light area, a medium area. Let's throw a little bit of a darker shade in here. We don't want it that dark. We don't want it as dark as our hills. But we are just going to kind of throw some lines in here. I'm going to go ahead and grab some more water. I damp it off a little bit on my paper towel so it's not drippy. Okay. And then I'm blending that into that lighter medium color that we had, so it's just slightly darker. Might want to outline a little bit of that lighter area that I had up there. And if you didn't do the lighter area while it's was wet, if you didn't blotch up some like I did, that's okay. You can go through and add a little water and blotch it up now if you want to. Or you can just have that as your lightest part and keep layering to get darker. Remember, if you make a line or something you don't like, you can always go in, get it wet, and blot it up again. And just take your paintbrush and kind of move the color around. If you want to blend out the color, clean off your paintbrush, wipe it down a little bit, have a little water on there, go right up next to that line of dark color, and you can pull that color around a little. I'm going to make this top section a little bit darker than the rest. Now you'll notice if you are painting with coffee, it is going to be sticky. I can't guarantee it's going to last for years and years and years. But it's fun. It's something different to try if you don't have a lot of art supplies at home. You probably have some Kool-Aid if you have kids, or wine if you're a wine drinker. You can paint with those things as well. And what you end up with is a monochromatic painting, meaning one color. I was fortunate to be able to go into my school yesterday and start cleaning my classroom a little bit. It's a little unusual to have to be cleaning it by myself. Usually my students are there to help me, and my coworker. But it was nice just to get in there and get out of the house. A little bit more stark down through here as well. I'm just going to billow these up a little bit. Now another fun thing to try, I don't know if some of you have noticed my post that I had the other day. You can go outside and get some pine branches off your trees, or you can grab some ferns that are popping up, or you can grab some twigs and tape a little section of them to a paintbrush or just a stick and make your own paintbrushes and try painting with something different and see what you come up with. So not only can you paint on different surfaces like rocks, glass, tiles, but you could try coming up and creating your own paintbrushes and see what you get. Now as I'm layering up color here, I want to make sure that I'm leaving some of that underneath color so I have all the colors. I don't want to cover over the entire thing with darker layers, or I'm going to lose some of that stuff that's underneath, and that stuff that's underneath gives you that depth of your painting, and it makes it look like you spent hours and hours and hours on it. Anytime you don't like a section, you can paint over it. You can try something new. You can add a little bit more value or contrast or something down at the bottom here as well. Maybe some of this down here adds a little ripple or something to the water. Maybe there's a sandbar coming up through here or something. You can kind of put those in there as well. Maybe it's a windy day and you've got a little bit more of a ripple in yours. It's nice living on a lake as I can see all the different reactions the water takes. And how it looks different depending depending on how many waves there are, how the wind is blowing. So there you have it. Let's put a line of birds up in the back. Now I'm going to have to switch to a smaller brush because these birds are teeny weeny. Remember how to make birds like we did in elementary school, or a bunch of V's basically. We're going to start with some down here. They're far, far away from us, so we don't want to make them very big. And they're flying in the shape of a V as well. Now remember, you can kind of make that upside down W as well, or a really wide M. It's another way to make a bird. I have them going up into the trees, or sorry, up from the trees up into the sun. Kind of a little line that's curved over here. And I'm going to kind of flatten them out a little bit. Maybe stack a couple up. They haven't quite fallen in line yet. They're working on changing positions. I know some people say that it's because when they're on these long journeys, when they're flying and migrating, it actually helps the person out front is doing most of the work, and the ones to the way back have it a little bit easier because they're just kind of catching the draft off of everybody. If anyone's a race car watcher, you know drafting makes it easier on you in your car. When you're driving, you'll get better gas mileage with tailgating people. Not that I suggest tailgating people. I don't want anyone mad at you. Alright, we're going to have a second little group of them up through here. Small little V's. These guys might join in. Maybe they're having their own party. I don't know. And there you have it. Coffee painting, watercolor painting, same techniques. A lot of the time, if you're doing something landscape like this, you're going to go with the wet on wet technique. So you're going to have the wet background, and then you're going to add your wet color, and then you can go back and kind of move things around. When you want a darker area, you want less water. So you'll take away some of that water, and you can go ahead and just paint right onto the dry paper. Or you can still have it damp. You can spray it with a spray bottle if you like. And then when you're dipping into your color, try to like blot off some of that excess water before you start painting with it. Hope you guys enjoyed. If you want to go ahead and sign the paper at the bottom, you can. A lot of watercolor artists, I believe, sign in pencil. I wouldn't quote me on that because I don't consider myself a watercolor artist. I consider myself a teacher. I'm an art teacher. I prefer working in all mediums. I don't like getting stuck with one. I get bored. So that's why I became a teacher. So if you have any questions, you can leave them in the comments and I'll try to answer them later. I got a little blob over here. Oh well, he's a rogue bird. A rogue bird. And enjoy the rest of your Saturday. Hopefully it warms up enough out. The sun is shining. It's a little breezy, but it'd be a good day to work in your gardens or mow the yard or take a walk with your family or take the dog out if you have a dog. My neighbor has a cat. She takes the cat out for a walk sometime. That's always fun to watch. So hope you guys have a great day.